loving pranams at Swami's lotus feet. Brothers and sisters, Sarup to all of you. A very special welcome to all our sisters from the Anandpur campus, the Sri Sathya Sai University. Brothers and sisters, last Sunday we were blessed with the satsang of the men from the Puttavati campus of the Institute, who shared their inspiring thoughts and their soulful music with all of us. Today, we are blessed with the satsang of the ladies from the Anandpur campus who are here to express their gratitude to their most beloved Divine Chancellor, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Last month, when we were in Prashanthi Nilayam, we had the opportunity to meet Sister Karuna at the office of Radio Sai there. And she had mentioned about the possibility of a very brief visit to the United States this month. But little did we know then of the events that would happen in the subsequent weeks. But in spite of that, and the many other challenges that she faced, Sister Karuna is here with us today, and I have no doubt that she has done this only because of her love for her beloved Swami, and with the intention of sharing his glorious stories with all of us here today. Sister Karuna, we are really grateful for that. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the presence of her sister-in-law and her daughter who are here as well. As I mentioned, today we have sisters from the Anandpur campus, and one of them is Sister Sumana Murali, who is now an active member of the East Brunswick Sai Center in New Jersey. Sumana has seen Karuna from a different perspective as a fellow student at Anandpur, and also has interacted with her on many occasions after they left the portals of the Institute. So I think it would be very appropriate if Sister Sumana shares her opening thoughts as well as introduce our distinguished guest for today. So please join me in welcoming all these wonderful messengers of Swami.
I offer my most loving salutations with a lot of gratitude at my beloved Swami's feet. And on behalf of all my sisters here from the Anandpur campus, and on behalf of all of us here in the United States, I would like to welcome Sister Karuna Munshi to our center here. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce her to you. Swami, when he started the Anandpur campus for women, it was one of the first campuses that he established among all the other campuses that belong to the Institute now. The Prashanthi Nilayam campus, or the Vidyagiri campus, and the Vrindavan campus. And there's now one at Udanahalli in Karnataka. And Anandpur was the first campus, and it was a campus that Swami had opened just for women. And our most beloved Swami, when he opened the campus, had this vision for all women around the world, and to be good mothers, to be good women. And he believed that when he educated a woman, he educated generations around the world. And keeping that vision in mind, and having been in that campus myself, I can say that he has brought up women who excel in education, women who excel at work, in sports, and in the kitchen. And I am really happy to welcome one such person that Swami has beautifully molded as his daughter, and as an example to the rest of us. Karuna Munshi in 1985 completed her Master's in Philosophy and received a gold medal from Swami, who is the Divine Chancellor of the university. She pursued her Master's and pursued a career in journalism, working both for the print and television media in New Delhi before she moved to Toronto, Canada in 1991. She served as the secretary of the Sai Center of Scarborough, Toronto, which is one of the largest Sai centers outside of India. And she's mentored several Sai youth when she was the youth coordinator and also as an SSC teacher. She's been involved with the Sathya Sai School of Toronto since its inception in the year 2000. And until 2009, she served at the school's office as an administrator, providing media support, community outreach, and other administrative services. And she took Swami's message of the 5 human values into the community by being one of the founding members of the core team of Walk for Values. I'm sure we're all familiar with Walk for Values, and she was in the core team that founded it. And she drew the attention of the Canadian public and media to Swami's values through Walk for Values. And it's such an international event today in many countries. And for the last 16 years, Karuna has been addressing retreats, Sai spiritual retreats, and other community events organized by Sai centers around the United States and Canada. She actually is she lives in Puttaparthi and she works at the Radio Sai studios there. And if you have heard, the only female voice that interviews people is her voice. And I am personally so proud of her. She's the first lady that entered the Radio Sai offices and has really, I think, changed the way Radio Sai looks at things. She's brought in this fresh new perspective into those offices. She's a wonderful mother, and both of her children are blessed to be in Swami's universities. So let's welcome Karuna Munshi.
With love and humility, I offer myself at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Omnipresent Lord, respected elders, sisters and brothers, Sai Ram. Thank you, Sumina, for that very kind introduction. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, I have only a singular but very significant claim to fame. And that claim is that I am a graduate of a university that was founded by the force that created the universe. I am a grateful alumna of an alma mater that bears a name so sacred that at this moment in time, millions of hearts from the North Pole to the South Pole are invoking that name for courage, blessings, faith, and help. And I think that for me is not a small achievement, and I never take that privilege for granted. I've lived most of my life against the background of Sai presence because Swami is the God that I grew up knowing, and I played out all my aspirations, fantasies, disappointments, emotions against that background. However, a few weeks ago, on the 24th of April at 7:40 a.m. Indian Standard Time, that backdrop just disappeared from all of our lives. And it seemed as though the rug that we always stood on was just pulled from under our feet. And today, all of us face a new reality. And the new normal is such a paradox. Swami taught us to believe that He's not the form and neither are we. So in this new normal, for a moment, it appears like everything has changed, but actually nothing has. And to internalize and understand that is what we have to do from this moment onwards. There's been a whole lot of emotions that all of us have been through in the last little while. There's this strange sense of numbness and a void and this physical pain in the heart. And one day you wake up wondering, do I really need to get up? Because I have Swami's picture beside my bed, and every morning when I wake up I wonder, do I need to get up? Swami's not even in the form anymore. But then every dawn is a new beginning. And Swami has told us, everything is perfect. Even the thought for the day that we saw today, nothing happens without His will. So change is good. Change may be difficult, but it's good. Renewal is necessary, and everything happens for a purpose. On 24th of April, which was 23rd April night here, was our first day of stepping out of the kindergarten of our spiritual lives. Because that's the first day Swami forced us to step into the school of hard knocks and actually walk the talk. We have been talking for the last 60 years or so. People like me have been living or trying to live the Sai life for the last 43 years, because most of my life I lived in Swami's shadow. And in this new reality, this new situation, we've been thrown into a reality that Bhagavan tried to prepare us for a very, very long time. But why has this... We were in Toronto when the news came, and because the Sai movement in Toronto is totally enormous, the centers remained open 24/7 for 3 continuous days for us to receive people who were coming, grieving, hurt, confused, and who we had to console and work with, and we had continuous prayers non-stop 24/7 for 3 days, and subsequently every weekend and every Thursday and so on. Why has there been such an upsurge of emotion at the passing on of a so-called 84-year-old God man in India, a spiritual leader? Let's recap what the big excitement or the commotion is all about. Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba was born as Satyanarayan Raju on November the 23rd, 1926, in a small and remote part of southern India, in a village called Puttaparthi, in the district of Anantapur. The event and the place went unnoticed and unrecorded in the history and map of British India. 84 years later, 84 and few days according to our Georgian calendar, when he made the transition, the entire world descended on a little international town called Puttaparthi. Puttaparthi was on the map of every news channel and everywhere in the world, and a whopping 500,000 men and women, regular ordinary folk, celebrities, politicians, sports people, actors, and the beneficiaries of his numerous humanitarian projects poured into the little village of Puttaparthi in complete discipline and silence to pay homage to the Master, whose life and message had transformed their lives forever, whose life and message had compelled them to seek self-transformation and improvement. How can one person achieve so much in one short span of 85 years? And why is the world feeling so lost in his passing away? As we grapple with this new reality or the new situation in our lives, there are many things at stake. Personally, for me, it's really a huge deal. Because 2 years ago, my husband and I made a very conscious decision to fold our lives, our very entrenched lives of 20 years in the city of Toronto, and relocate to India, because we wanted to spend the next 10 years at Bhagwan's lotus feet in his vicinity serving him. So when we went there, we spent 2 years, and even before we could complete 2 years, we came to Toronto, and Bhagavan had moved on. So did Swami shortchange us? Did he shortchange the millions of his devotees who were so sure that Swami is going to live to be 95 years because he said so, and he can never speak an untruth, because truth is his first, middle and last name? In this reality, everything with God, he always told us 2 things: love my uncertainty and never ever try to fathom me. Swami categorically stated as a little boy, I can't think of any little boy who would have the audacity or the confidence to say that if all the intelligence of the world was pooled together, and if everybody tried to probe who he was, they would never even understand an iota of his reality. Because the truth is huge. And to understand it, we have to become it. And that challenge is very easy to speak in words and very hard to do. So when we moved to Puttaparthi 2 years ago, we planned our lives in terms of a decade from now we'll do this, a decade from now we'll do this, because I used to always tell everybody at work, next 10 years everybody has to suffer me. After that, you guys do what you want. And they were very hopeful, but they thought 10 years were very far away. But as in hindsight, everything is 2020, and now we know, unfortunately, very late, that Swami was speaking in lunar calendar, and there was not a single miscalculation. Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba lived for 30,388 days on the face of earth in the form that we are familiar with. The Vikram Samvat, or the lunar calendar that we follow, has Indian astrology has 2 streams, and typically the average length of a month is 27.14 days. If you do the math, he lived for 94.5 or 95.6 years by the lunar calendar. He kept his word. We were blinded by Maya. Why did nobody see this coming? How come we never thought of all this? Everything has a reason. Because the 27 days that Bhagavan was in hospital were the most important 27 days of his career. Do you know of any time in your life, because I don't, of when we prayed with the intensity that we did during the 27 days? Even the times when I went to sit for exams totally unprepared, or was going through an extended labor pain, I never prayed with that intensity with which I and millions others around the globe prayed. It was like our life depended on it. Every breath, every second, everywhere, people chanting Rudram, doing prayers. In India, in Puttaparthi, the Hindu community was praying in all the traditional temples. The Muslim community in Puttaparthi was praying in mosques. People were chanting every kind of possible prayer for Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba to recover. And I think in his illness, Swami brought about the greatest miracle of all times. He united us as one family. In our grief, we became one. And for the first time, we realized that the dynamics of interpersonal relations that has really spoiled so many chances for all of us as a collective whole, and given our organization a lot of distractions, it just dissolved. Everybody was one. Everybody was helping each other to pray. We forgot all our hurts, our grudges, our dislikes, our prejudices, and we just decided that right now everything else can be put on hold. We have to pray and we have to make sure Swami gets well. So the purpose of unity, that unity of purpose, I beg your pardon, and that oneness that we experienced, that was totally unprecedented. Can you imagine if we had been this united and this prayerful 20 years ago, where our personal transformation would have been? If only we could rewind the clock 20 years. Imagine the momentum that the Sai movement would have gathered if we had been the way we were during the last 1 month or 2 months or so. And why did we not get there sooner? Everything that Swami does has a purpose. And everything he does has a lesson. I guess we became so comfortable. The complacency, the knowing that, someday when everything else in my life is going to be perfect, paid my mortgage, my kids are settled, I have that divine 5-week-long vacation, I'm going to go to India and have Swami darshan. Or just to know that, Swami is there, and anytime there's a problem, I'll shoot a letter or sit in front of the altar. So we took him for granted, and we all wanted to become the way he wanted us to be, but in our own time. We were not rushing. So in this process, our time and his timelines didn't match, and all of a sudden, he put us in a situation where all our timelines dissolved, and we knew it's a now or never moment. What has been the net outcome of the recent grieving and the situation that we have all faced? I honestly believe that the rebirthing of the human consciousness that Bhagavan predicted has happened. Right after the nuclear disaster in Japan, this is the first time that humanity has prayed so intensely with oneness. We don't know what other catastrophes were in store for us. You know, all the scriptures speak of Qayamat, Apocalypse, the Pralaya. This is like about the time, actually, one of the Christian radio stations has said 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, May 21st, we're all dissolving. So I'm sure none of that will happen, and our prayers that have occurred over the last little while have something to do with that. Now, our new reality has left us with a number of new challenges. First and foremost, the question on everybody's mind is, when, where, and how are we all going to find Prem Sai Baba? So I tell everybody, you know what? A Baba in hand, or rather a Baba in your heart, is worth 9 in the bushes of Doda Balapur or wherever the place is in Mandya district. So worry not about it. Because the Ishavasya Upanishad clearly tells us that the self will determine the moment to reveal itself to us. And just as Sathya Sai Baba revealed Shirdi Baba to us, introduced us to Shirdi Baba and told us about Prem Sai Baba, in time to come, he will introduce us to himself again in his own time whenever we need to. In the meanwhile, the other question, actually it was quite funny, I was speaking at the Sathya Sai School of Canada and I asked this question to the children. So, who is Sathya Sai Baba? And we determined he is the emperor, the king of love. And I said, every time a king passes on, what happens? And the children said there will be succession. So we spoke of the British monarchy, how when the current queen passes on or moves on or abdicates, who will become the next king, because thanks to Kate Middleton and Prince William's marriage, the kids knew everything about who is coming on next in the line. So I said, when Baba has moved on, so who is going to succeed him? And a very little girl raised her hand and she said, Prema Baba. I said, okay, Prema Sai Baba, very good answer, but till we find him, first he has to be born, then he has to grow up, we have to find him. So in the interim period, who is going to succeed Sathya Sai Baba? And a little boy who's been watching way too much news tosses up a name from Puttaparthi and says, such and such person. I said, Jashman, put your hand down, stop watching the news, because we'll come to the issue of news a little later. But to tell you the truth, if you want to know who's going to succeed Sathya Sai Baba, I work in the ashram, I have the insider information and I'm very happy to share it with you. So this is what I want you all to do. For the ladies, please look to your left at the person and smile, and to the gentleman also, to the person to your left and smile. And the people at the back as well. Because you're looking at the face of Sathya Sai Baba's heir. The heir apparent to the throne of Sai's love is you and I. As much as the wise master in Kung Fu Panda told us, Shifu said to the panda that if you want to, the secret scroll was only a piece of reflective material. So you and I and millions of Sai devotees around the world are the heirs to the throne of Sai. But to accept that royal role, we've got to live it. So when I was talking to the children, we spoke of the Princess Diaries, how when the princess finds out she's royalty, she could no longer be her clumsy self. She had to act more dignified and more royal in her mannerism. Similarly, inside out, each of us has to live like a child of God, whose grace we have received so profusely all our lives. So Swami personally scripted this saga of love, and Act 1, Scene 1 is over. It's you and I who have to continue this script. We have to author it, and we have to author it in a manner which is worthy of the legacy he has left behind. Because his is the greatest story ever told, the only story worth telling, and it's the story of pure love on 2 feet. And this is a story that will survive the test of time. And thousands of years from now, this is the story that will give hope and direction to posterity. To live Swami's message is a very easy thing to say. The first principle of Swami's message is the message of love. And when we love someone, we have to accept them, not the crazy things they may do, and we have to forgive. You're all people who live in the great country, age to come, we have to start from inside out. When individuals are at peace and there's harmony in their home, there will be order in society, and nations will be prosperous and harmonious and peaceful, and only then the world will reach that stage. How can we possibly now represent this Swami? We are all ambassadors of the Sai Empire, but Swami has said there are limitations of rationality. Who are we representing? In this connection, I want to share with you a short story. I had the privilege of interviewing many outstanding women at Radio Sai, including our Sumana Murli. You see, we have a mutual admiration club going here. So, apart from Sumana, I also interviewed the British songwriter, musician, singer, actress, the blues diva, Dana Gillespie. And in her interview, Dana Gillespie told me about her travel to the countries that were formerly part of the USSR, so former republics of the Soviet Union. Amongst them, countries such as Dagestan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and so on. And she said that, and Dagestan, and she said that these are countries which faced acute godlessness under the communist regime. But after the dismantling of the USSR, their spiritual aspirations are coming to the surface once again. And she has been visiting a lot of these Muslim countries. And she said she went to a place called Samarkand. I think Samarkand is in Dagestan, and she was going through the bazaar with some pictures of Baba and two gentlemen from the Sai organization who were chaperoning her there. She goes and does some musical presentations and speaks to them about Swami. And she met this cute old Muslim lady with her headscarf, with a little basket buying her flowers and her fruits in a busy marketplace. And she said, "Madam, can you just have a word with you?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." She said, "Would you like to have this?" And she pulls out a picture of Swami and she just shows it to this lady. And this woman goes, "Oh, he's God. We've been waiting for him." That is intuitive knowing. And she said at that point in time, a little boy who was playing nearby came and said, "Oh yeah, I know him." She said, "You know him?" He goes, "Yeah, he comes and plays soccer with us here." And then she told me about how the local people told her that there was a very deeply spiritual person who lived up in the mountains nearby, and he was a Sufi mystic. And Dana Gillespie is very drawn to Sufism. So she decided to explore the possibility of meeting this person. And along with her two chaperones, she carried some fruits, flowers and stuff, gifts, and she went up to meet this Sufi mystic. When she arrived at his residence, she found he had gone to offer his namaz or his prayers at a nearby mosque. So they waited, and in a little while he returned, and he invited them to his front room in his house, in his little wooden hut. And Dana again gave him a picture of Baba. I think one of the persons who was accompanying Dana presented a picture of Baba and said, "We bring you these gifts and we thought you might like to have this picture." He looked at the picture and he smiled, and he put his hand in his trouser pocket and he pulls out another picture of Baba. Then he puts his hand in his shirt pocket and he pulls out a keychain of Baba. He said, "How on earth did you get it here? Have you ever been to India?" He goes, He comes here himself and he gives these to us. And then he said, "Please come inside." And when they went into his inner chamber, he had two life-size pictures on the wall of Shirdi Sai Baba and Sathya Sai Baba. Now, do we even know who this Sathya Sai Baba really is to represent him? What are we representing? Are we representing a humanitarian? Are we representing a philanthropist? Are we representing an avatar? Are we representing God as you and I understand? Who are we representing? I think each of us will have to make the determination for ourselves. I can share a few of my experiences where I understand who Swami is. In the year I'm so old. I know. 1988, I used to live in New Delhi, India, and I wrote an exam for a competitive exam where thousands of people sat and wrote that exam to sign up for joining the Indian government's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, which meant you could work for the Indian television, national television channel, and at that time we didn't have free airwaves, we did not have private networks, so there was only one, it was called Doordarshan. So I was barely a few months into my marriage, struggling to find my bearings, totally confused, inept at housework, inept at diplomacy, family politics, none of that. Straight out of Anantapur College, very raw, and I wrote this exam and I sucked at it because I know I didn't do well. But of course, when I went to write, I prayed like never before, but not as intensely as I prayed last 1 month. So I prayed to Swami, and I know what Swami had said, that whenever in trouble, chant the Gayatri. So I chanted the Gayatri, and surprisingly, compared to many very bright people, I kind of passed the written exam, and I got called for an interview date. When I got called, I was already working for a news magazine as a sub-editor at that time in Delhi, a general features magazine. And when I got the interview call, I had a stream of people coming in and out of my house. I did not drive. I had no access to a library because I had a grueling schedule at work. So I was frantic. I didn't have even time to sit and pray to Swami. I did not consciously pray. But just 2 days before my interview, I thought I won't even appear because I'm so unprepared. Swami came in my dream, and I told him, Swami, I have got an interview call and I know nothing. I have no prep. Swami said, don't worry, I'm always with you. You do one thing, you go and read up on Punjab. And he gave me Pad Namaskar, blessed me, and he disappeared. It was not a vague dream which I remembered in bits and pieces. It was clear, like watching a movie. Very clear vision. I woke up and I said Punjab, because I knew Punjab was on fire at that time. The state had serious separatist aspirations, and it wanted to secede from the Union of India and become its own country. And then I was working 6 days a week and I only had a Sunday off. So thinking all this, I reached my office and I put my handbag on my desk and I find my desk clean, and there was a magazine, just one single magazine on my desk. It was the Frontline magazine, which is a feature magazine of the Hindu group in India, and it had a cover story, Turmoil in Punjab, and it had these inset boxes of all the key players. I said, oh, this looks like, too much synchronicity, so let me just grab it. I shoved it in my handbag and I went about my work. That night I went home and I read that magazine front to back and again back to front. I read everything. I read the whole cover story in Punjab 2 to 3 times. I memorized the names of the guys, and I think I got a good picture because it was a cover story and it had been covered from all perspectives. And I go for this interview in a very hi-fi building, and there are all these well-known Indian journalists who are vying for these positions. And when I sat with them, I felt so small because they were so knowledgeable, and then whoever went ahead of me, when they came back, everybody was nervous and perspiring, and I said, what did they ask you? And they talked of all kinds of issues. India's refusal to sign the non-proliferation treaty, India's nuclear program, the recent budget, the railway budget, the agricultural subsidies. I knew absolutely nothing on any of those topics. So I asked everybody, did they talk about Punjab? They said no. So I just said, oh my God. And the only other preparation work I had done, I had worn the sari Swami had given me for my convocation. So Vibhuti, Swami sari, and that one Frontline magazine I read, and that dream, and that's how I run my life. Really not very logical if you think of it, but it works for me, so I'm happy. So I just went to the bathroom and I said, oh God, Swami, what am I going to do? And I saw my reflection in the mirror, knock off. Shifu's reflective glass. I looked like nothing. I was perspiring in an centrally air-conditioned building because I was so nervous. So I said, you know what, let me just leave the building right now, because when they call me, they're going to have my resume on file, and it says Sri Sathya Institute of Higher Learning, gold medalist. They'll think the university has a really poor standard because this gold medalist knows nothing. So I said, before I spoil Swami's name, I should just take the exit route and run out. Then I said, Swami, what should I do? I said, I better I face it. But I just chanted Gayatri like I never have in the washroom. Then I went back and I waited for my turn, and I said, Swami, this moment I surrendered to you like I never have. You have to take over. So when I went in, I found there were 3 or 4 very elderly and intelligent looking gentlemen sitting on the other side of the table, and they were extremely pleasant to me, and they say, oh, what do you do currently? And they talked about my current position, which I could easily explain of, and they got talking to me and everything was going honky-dory. I said, oh my God, they're not half as scary as all those guys made them out to be. And then they finally say, if we hire you for this job, with the viewers of Doordarshan. We reach millions, so many million Indians across the nation. And you're giving the leader of the separatist movement an opportunity to state his case on national television. He will come across as a hero. And people might buy into his theory and his call for separatism. He can talk of all the issues, all the oppression that the people of Punjab are undergoing, and he might actually brainwash people. How do you propose to handle that? And that wasn't mentioned in the Hindu. So here I was, utterly lost, and I'm like, and I'm like, Swami, I have no clue what to say. Swami, speak. I just said, Swami, please speak. And I started speaking words I did not even know. I was so wise that I was watching myself perform like a magician. I was saying things like, you know what, momentarily, yes. I don't typically use the word momentarily in normal conversation. And I said, the world is shifting towards this glasnost and perestroika, and I'm throwing some Russian jargon from God knows where. And I'm like, very good, Swami, keep at it, keep going, what's next? And this was like, I find these four gentlemen nodding aggressively and, agreeing with me. I was convincing people with God knows what I was saying. And when it was over, they just asked me, he said, I'm okay. And let's say I give you an assignment to do something in Hindi, and I'm okay with Hindi, but I don't work in Hindi, so I did a piece to camera, and they said, thank you very much, and I left. And when I came out, I said, what was that all about? And I can tell you this much. When I surrendered to Swami, he became my voice, he became my thoughts, he knew everything, he's the cosmic camera. I had not even the vaguest idea who those four gentlemen were. But later on, I discovered one of them was going to be my super boss, and he was known as the Gorbachev of India because he believed in perestroika and glasnost. So can you imagine, I was throwing those words back at him without knowing any of this and don't know where they... So when you plug into the cosmic consciousness and start downloading the intelligence from there, as the Gayatri Mantra proposes, nothing and nobody can stop us from being our God selves. And the year I finished my studies, my BA, during the time when I studied, this was much earlier than when Sumana went to college, because all of them are much younger than I am. Those days, Swami used to always speak to the graduating class and give them an interview. A year prior to me, my sister graduated, and Swami called her class and gave her batch a wonderful interview. So our batch, my other sister, whose name is Kavita, and I, we were graduating the same year, and our little group was every time Swami interview graduating class, and Swami said, data, wait, and he never called us. And exam got over, and many girls left, but because we had to travel to North India in a train called Karnataka Express, which was to run only twice a week, we had to spend some time in Puttaparthi to catch the train. So even when the last batch of girls left because they had to catch the Hyderabad bus and the Chennai bus, at last, on the last darshan, just as we were about to leave, Swami came to us and he said, go. And we all got up, and the teachers, as always, out of respect, they got up first, and he said, no teachers, only students. And that's the most memorable interview I've ever had with Bhagwan, because in the interview room, we were hardly 16 or 17 girls, and I didn't even know, I was so mesmerized looking at Swami and listening to him, I had no clue that one of the elderly uncles was sitting at the back. Apparently Swami invited him as well, and a group of outgoing students. And in that interview, Swami spoke to us about two very important lessons. One, he told us, when you step out of this university, always remember, the best way you can please me is by being watchful of your character. And Swami described character building as a very tedious and long process. He said it's much like taking this enormous, huge boulder and trying to take it uphill on top of a peak. So you're huffing and you're puffing, and every little millimeter is so hard to push. You have to work so hard. But, God forbid, you have one tiny slip. What took you years to take up will come down crashing in a second. So as women, of my college, as daughters of this university, and as my daughters and my students, I expect you to be extremely mindful of your character, because character is strength. And that is the true value of a person. And in this interview, when Swami was speaking, I had a burning issue bothering me, and I didn't know how to speak about it in front of 17 other girls. Okay, my sister was allowed, so 16 other girls, and the uncle I didn't know was there. So I was like I was sitting right at Swami's feet, and every 2 seconds he would ask me, Kada, isn't it? In Telugu, it's very important to build character, isn't it? And I said, yes, Swami. And at this time, when he was just looking at me, I just said, Swami, I have a problem. He said, what? So now I didn't know how to say in front of so many people, and everybody would know my personal issues. So I knelt up and I went close to his face and to his ears, and then he said, Bolo ma. Then I thought, if I speak, everybody will know, so what shall I do? And here Swami is lending me his ear, his big ear, so soft, the periphery of it was touching my face. So I said, it's my do or die moment, and I'm not going to miss the chance. So I started rattling my issues to Swami in high-flying Kashmiri, which is my mother tongue. And I'm like, Swami, this. And he pulled his face back, and he has a quizzical look. He said, Pagal, kaun si bhasha bolta hai? He called me insane, and he said, what language are you speaking? And then he answered himself. He said, is it Pashto, which is like Persian? Because Kashmiri does sound a lot like Persian. We have a lot of those kinds of sounds. So Swami, by now I was crying because I'd already told him what was weighing me down. I had to snitch on my mom and dad, which was very important to do at that point in time, because I was going to go home after my undergrad, and my mom had decided she's going to get my sister and I married. So I wanted to get away and pursue my masters. So I was just trying to tell Swami about mom and dad, especially mom being tough and difficult. So it happens when you're like all of 20, all that can ever be known, or so you believe. So I believe that too. So I said, my mom, she's got it all upside down. I have to tell Swami. When I told this, and then Swami started joking about my language skills, I started to cry. So when I was crying, then my sister felt very sad for me. She said, Swami, but don't you always tell us that there is only one language, the language of the heart? He was so pleased. She got her brownie points. He said, yes, that is true. And then he looked at me and he gave me an answer that has stood by me all my life. He looked in my eyes and he said, you don't worry about anything. You go home, you keep praying, and you come back. But remember, don't worry about the future, and don't worry about the past. The past is history. It's gone. If you made mistakes, things didn't work out, you can't get it back. The future, it's a mystery. What you have in hand is the present moment. It's a gift from God. That's why it's the present. Seize it, grab it, utilize it, live it, love it, enjoy it. Because if you live your present well, the future will be taken care of. So before Eckhart Tolle wrote The Power of Now, studying in which I like very, very much, and I think Eckhart is a great writer and a great thinker. All these are Vedantic truths that were known to all Sai students, not only I. Forever, anybody who's been in contact with Swami, including his classmates in the Bukkapatnam school, Swami has been teaching these profound truths since the time he was a little baby. I don't know what to share with you and what not to, because I will tell you about when I finished my masters, I decided to do my PhD, and I always live by the heart, never by the head. So I decided I will pick a topic which spoke to my heart. It's a form of theistic existentialism, because I'm a student of philosophy, and I picked a Danish philosopher, and I loved his theory of the leap of faith and infinite resignation and surrender, and the miracle that comes out of it. So I said, I'm going to talk about this infinite resignation issue. And I even wrote a synopsis and I gave it to Swami, and he blessed it, and then he gave it to his biographer N. Kasturi, who gave it to his daughter to give it to me. Swami said, you keep it, and he blessed it. And subsequently, my personal circumstances, remember mom's story from after undergrad, did not allow me to come back and do my PhD. But I didn't really regret it, because I knew Swami said whatever happens for the good, seize the present and all that. And the only reason I wanted to do PhD was to be near him. I had no academic ambitions at all, or professional goals for that matter. So I was very sad that I couldn't do my PhD for a momentarily, remember that word, and then I was fine and I got along with my life. And Swami said education is for life. not merely for earning a living. If I had finished my doctorate, I would be a professor or something in some institute. Nobody likes to study philosophy these days. A little bit of ethics, a little bit of logic. It's just an elective people take. So, I would be lecturing on Vedanta somewhere. And let me just, whatever I propose to do is infinite faith and resignation. Let me practice it in my life. Now, I said so, but I didn't practice it. I lived in Toronto, I worked actively in the Sai movement, the Sathya Sai school was born, and I contributed as one of the volunteers. And every time I went near the school, this voice in my heart kept saying, you got to work here full time. At that time, I had a well-paying job with the labor union in Toronto. I worked for the social justice movement in Ontario, and had a great pension plan, great salary, very easy life. Summer I had 4 days work, full pay, because we got 3 days off. So great benefits, unionized jobs. So you can imagine it comes, and Canada being the kind of egalitarian society, similar here. So she will bear me out, fellow Canadian, social justice. So it was a great life to lead, and everything was going really well. And that's when Swami came I had this strong voice within me telling me to get involved full time with the Sathya Sai school. And then I kept doing it as a part-time activity, but continuing with my job, I had this plan, yes Swami, I'll do it when I have enough money, when my kids are grown up, when I have enough retirement funds, when everything in the world is perfect and world peace has descended, I will take over and start working in the school full time. Because we all like to, look for excuses from not to avoid listening to our heart. And that's when a very significant or life-altering incident happened in my life. My sister-in-law who's here, Nalini, she was coming from India to the US for the first time. And my husband and I and my son, we drove down she was flying to Boston. We drove down from Toronto in a big van with our son and all our pillows and blankets and everything to a place in Massachusetts, Amherst, to stay with my friend, another Anandpur alumna named Malika. We have this little club, we have this mutual sisterhood from Anandpur, so we're very tight, all of us. So whenever we have to stay out of town, we like to stay with each other, and I stayed with Malika. And our drive from Toronto to Amherst should have taken us 7 to 8 hours, but it took us 15-16 hours because there was the worst snowstorm that hit. It was the late January that she came in. And the snowstorm was terrible, and we thought many times we're never going to make it. So throughout the drive, I was chanting Gayatri Mantra and drinking Gaviscon because the acidity and the stress was terrible, and we saw at least 40 vehicles that were belly up along the way because the road had been treacherous. There was no one driving, all the services were closed, but we were happily driving at 20 kilometers an hour till we reached in the middle of the night. Now next morning we woke up late and the host went to work, and we were so exhausted. So Nalini was coming in the evening. My husband said, he loves to explore cities. He told me and my little son, who was 2 at that time, he said, why don't you stay at home and relax and, get caught up with everything, and I'll go early to Boston airport because he wants to check out what all is there, maybe an outlet mall or something, and then he would go and pick up our sister-in-law from the airport. So we were expecting everybody to be back home by 7 o'clock or so, 6:30 or so, because she would arrive at 3, come out by 4, drive home 2 hours, 6. Now, everybody came from office. Have they come? Has your sister-in-law come? I said, no, we're just waiting for Sunny to come back. Sunny's my husband. And eventually, we kept waiting for Sunny to come. Nalini arrived from India. She was at the airport. She's calling me and said, how come nobody came to pick me? And I said, no, Sunny left many hours ago. He left in the morning. He must be there. Look for him. She calls an half hour later, an hour later. So this drama goes on, and after about 2 hours or so, it became very frightening because there was this huge snowstorm and we could not find this guy. We kept calling him on his cell phone, no response. So after about 2 hours, 3 hours, it got very scary. There's this girl who has come from India for the first time to USA. She's alone at the airport in a snowstorm. Her brother has gone to pick her at 10 in the morning, and at about 8:39, he's still missing. No clue, no trace. And after all the initial no cell phones, I even called Ontario, my home. My daughter was at home, she was little, and my sister and my mother-in-law, I asked them, did you hear from him? And they said no, because then all kinds of strange thoughts started creeping into my head. What happened to him? How could a person with a wallet full of IDs, a nice big van, a cell phone just disappear into thin air? And he knows he's going to pick someone. The person has arrived, she's waiting for 3 hours, where is he? And then I thought maybe, something went wrong, and if he's had an accident, Ontario Provincial Police would have been notified because we have an Ontario license plate. So I kept calling Canada, and they said, no news here. And slowly it dawned on me that something was seriously wrong here. And it was a fear that I have never experienced in my life. It was a knot in my stomach, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, what has happened to my life? Here I am with a 2-year-old son in somebody else's house in US. My other child is in Canada, a missing husband, and a sister-in-law waiting at the airport. And this guy is not to be found. Actually, she made friends with the security guard who gave her his cell phone to call us freely. Working. How come she's calling us so many times from the Boston airport? And when I thought it was all over and my life was going to change forever, I went down to the altar in my friend's house. She used to run a Sai center. She's a Sai student. And I prayed to Swami, and I said, take what you want, take my arm, take my leg, take my everything, but let this awful nightmare end. You just have to rewind the time and somehow restore my life to the normalcy I was enjoying at 10 this morning till the time my husband was there. I told Swami, I'm not ready for it. I'm not strong enough to handle this. This situation is beyond my comprehension and beyond my ability to manage. And I said, Swami, if you can just reverse time and find where this guy disappeared in the face of earth, what snow swallowed him, earth swallowed him, where did he go? If you can just get me some news, I promise you I will only live and work for you. And if you taught me to cross a T and dot an I will only do it to glorify you. And the moment I made that promise, the phone rang and she found her brother-in-law. He never found her. And my sister-in-law found my husband, and then she phoned and said, he's here. And well, long story short, the whole sequence of terrifying, petrifying experience had been orchestrated for Swami to knock sense in my head because I'm such a slow learner. And I felt, no, honestly, I'm not being humble here. It's just the honest truth. And of course, in a little while, 2 hours later, they both came home and I gave my sister-in-law a hug, and there's a sequel to the story. I was standing on the stairs and waiting for my husband to give him that look, which he still hasn't forgotten. Because the whole thing happened, he went into the airport and he left his cell phone in the van. Who does that? And he never found her because, I think he was looking at some gift shop. I don't know what he was doing. So I felt Swami did all this because I have, since my childhood, asked him, make me your instrument. Let me taste the bliss of being your daughter. And he was giving me a million chances, and I was only doing lip service but not grabbing them with both my hands. And the moment I went back after the trip, the first thing I did, I picked the phone in the morning. I called the principal of the Sathya school with whom I used to work as a part-time volunteer, and I said, Mr. Pillai, I need to come and see you. I think I need to work at the school. And he asked me, why this sudden change of heart? Aren't you going back to your work? Because I was on maternity leave and my leave was ending and I could go back to my job or something. I said, no, there's been a life-altering experience. And from that day, when I started working, filling the form on Revenue Canada form, name of employer, Sri Sathya Sai Education Trust of Canada, the moment my employer became God, my life took a turn for such bliss and beauty that I think everything else that I did before that was so inconsequential, so insignificant, and of no value at all. And a lot of people ask me, did you not miss the paycheck and the pension plan and the 4-day work week? You know what? Compensation comes in many forms. And the best form of compensation is gratification. And when you lead a life of purpose, of higher purpose, trusting that you are only an instrument in the hands of the Lord, everything is taken care of. And is taken care of better than you ever could have with your rationality. Because when you infinitely resign to His will and make that leap of faith, all else is added to you. And I'm the poster girl for that. And I love going to work. I love waking up. And I don't know, people worry about paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what those dates are, because really my paycheck is every day. Every single day, Swami fills my life with so much of happiness and gratification and satisfaction. When I fall asleep and every bone in my body is hurting, I'm so grateful it's hurting and every muscle is aching, is because I serve the love of my life. And nothing greater. I don't know who can compete with me for their sense of gratification. Not too many people. And that is the lesson Swami taught me. Did Swami need me to work for him? Absolutely not. The power that can create the universe with one single thought. He thought and the mountains arose. The rivers flowed. Trees sprung up. Birds and bees were chirping. The moon rose, the sun rose. That power needs nobody. But the purpose of this avatar is to confer bliss upon us. And he's showing us the way to taste that bliss. Now, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink that water unless the horse takes a leap of faith and sticks his tongue out and dips it in the water. And in that step, all of us need to take. And Swami has told this to us for 60 odd years actively. And if we fail to make that leap of faith, take that one extra step, all those decades, I don't know what we are waiting for. I honestly don't. Swami had said that the kingdom of God is so vast. He told his students many times and his devotees that when people interact with you, when people meet you, they should have the same joy as of meeting me. He said, in time to come, my darshan will flow to you through my instruments, will flow through the world. And we have seen it happen in his passing on. I told you, when Bhagavan left the form, from ordinary to the extraordinary, everybody was in Puttaparthi, including the Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the most powerful woman politician in the country, an Italian by the name of Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, and everyone else. However, there were many devotees who came, amongst them the greatest cricket legend of all time, Sachin Tendulkar. And that one camera frame of Sachin, heartbroken, shedding a tear at Bhagwan's Mahasamadhi. That, imagine the impact that has borne. So the Times of India headline said, God to fans shows human emotion. Because he's God to his fans. But when he showed respect for Swami, everything Tendulkar does right. He's a great player, he's very disciplined, he stays out of controversy, he's not involved in any kickbacks or any kind of money laundering. Everything good about him is attributed to his being a disciple of Swami. And if he has a slip, God forbid, then they will say, oh, he's a Sai Baba devotee, so much for being that. So each of us now has a huge responsibility to live our lives with such care. And the biggest issue here that I have experienced, having grown in the Sai family, is that all of us, including myself, we suffer from what is spiritual schizophrenia. We are terribly bipolar in everything we do. We have one persona for coming to the Sai Baba Center. We dress a certain way. We conduct ourselves a certain way. We're very polite. Our body language is very humble. But when we are elsewhere in other situations, we're not the same person. And Swami has said he's omnipresent and everybody we deal with in all places are sacred. If that is the case, I think we would have to rethink, many of us would have to rethink everything we do, including the choice of what we eat, what we drink, our beverages, our food, our clothes, our interaction, our language, our recreations. Everything needs to be reconsidered to align it with who we truly are. The moment we integrate our two personalities, the Sai Center personality and the outside world personality, and become one person, I think the world will take note. And I find, in all fairness, I live in a very tolerant country, Canada, I used to, and I think I pretty much have found people respect you for who you are, and I never have had the compulsion or I never had to worry about my job, my promotion suffering because I made a Sai Baba choice. It has never happened. Because when you make the right choice, the same righteousness resides in the heart of the person across from you. And they don't have to be Sai Baba people. But nobody with a half a brain cell will fail to recognize goodness and honesty and integrity. Even the mafia dons would like their workers to be honest and upright and loyal to them. So basically, loyalty and honesty and integrity and peace and truthfulness and uprightness, all these are in fashion everywhere in the world, including the underworld. Good values never go out of fashion or out of flavor at any time. And I think this bipolarism is an issue that we need to address because, going to Parthi, doing the 9-month huge spiritual churning and sadhana to prepare for that one darshan, and then when you come back, what is the impact of all those 1 year of doing whatever we have done? Have we really transformed for good, or is it just a wave we were riding and now we are down again? So the moment we start playing this yo-yo game, I think that is the day the world will notice us as Sai Baba people and worth something, worth the name that we like to associate ourselves with. Till then, we are only praying on the name of Sai, P-R-E-Y. The day we start praying to that name with sincerity, we will be worthy of being His children. People are having difficulty figuring out how do I relate to Swami now that the form is not there. The question I asked them is till date, till the 24th of April, did you and I start our day with Swami in the Yajur Mandir over breakfast, lunch, tea and dinner and bedtime? No, he lived in Yajur Mandir and we lived wherever we were, but we always felt the connection. And the connection is only getting stronger. But what we need to do is to unclutter ourselves. There's enormous room within us to clear ourselves, our hearts, of all kinds of past misgivings, past prejudices, hurts, grudges, all kinds of negative emotions that we have. And once we clear our hearts of everything negative, we will create enough room for the God Lord to reside. And I realized the day we were in Toronto, we were watching the proceedings in Prashanti Nilayam on the day of the Mahasamadhi rites. And the hardest to watch visual was that when the camera zoomed in on the pit they had created where Bhagwan used to sit on the portico, just the thought that the divine body is going to be inert in there was very painful. And I just thought I was very strong and I can handle it all, but that visual was awful to handle. It was like somebody stabbed my heart. And then when I prayed to Swami, I was guided to realize that in my heart there is place. If I can clear it of all things yuck and muck and lay a layer of rose petals, the divine body or all that it represents will reside within me as the light. And at this point in time, I would like you all to sit upright in a relaxed manner and close your eyes and focus your attention on your spiritual heart, which is to your right, just off the center of your chest. And please think of all negative emotions that you may have there. Just toss them out one by one. Regrets about the past, fear, hurt, grudges, self-pity, jealousy, and when it's nice and clear, pick rose petals of a color of your choice and lay them in your heart. And now, remember the beautiful divine form of our Lord, His gorgeous orange robe, His soft, big hair, halo of hair, His big black eyes, the smile, the little brown hand of God, and those two lotus feet, and invite Him to sit there, smiling, happy, on His throne in your hearts. Tucked away, as a resplendent little light deep within your heart, prompting our thoughts, prompting our words, our actions, our emotions, everything we see, we hear, and visualize rays of love emanating from this little side within your heart and touching everybody in this heart hall and beyond. You may open your eyes in your own time. Even though Swami's transition from the form to the formless has been a huge personal tragedy or loss for all of us, it'll be some time before we quite realize its importance in the history of humanity. Because 500 years, 5,000 years, 50,000 years from now, all history will be written as before Sai and after Sai, BS and AS, as we did with before Christ and after Christ. And you and I have lived through the transition. We represent the generation of continuity. And where will the Sai mission go? Who is going to take it further? Will the trust continue its activities? What about all those nasty reports in the media? If you address all those questions, we realize that Swami has planned everything to the last T. The Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust is a perfectly instituted body with checks and balances in place that Bhagavan himself has approved of, and it is run by individuals Bhagavan has handpicked of the highest caliber and highest integrity. And all levels of Indian government are very happy with the way they wish every trust in India could be run the way the Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust is run. And this is the model for humanity. And every single word, I wouldn't even say 99.9% of the reports are false, every word is false, I'll tell you why. They even keep naming the names, some of the trustees, and because there's a devotee, a member of the trust who shares his last name with another Sai devotee who's well known in the business circles, they name the other guy as a trustee, although he's not even. So they mix up people because they have the same last name. All the news is factually incorrect. People's ages, names, backgrounds are incorrectly represented. So do not pay any credence to what you read in the news or follow. Honestly, it's just a pack of lies. That's what it is. Now, where is this movement headed? I want to ask you, I want to take you back in time to the time of Gautama the Buddha, when he attained nirvana, and on the same day, on Buddha Jayanti, Buddha Purnima day, he decided to cast off his body. How many bhikkhus did he have around him? And there was no Air China to fly them to Shanghai and Air Japan to take them to Japan. But Buddhism spread around the world, even in those days, because the disciples of Buddha became his instruments. They became his arms, eyes and ears. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he left his mortal coil, what was the state of Islam? Was it an organized religion? The millions of people around the world that find peace in the religion that stands for peace runs in millions. And when Jesus was crucified, even those who trusted betrayed him. Today Christianity represents the message of hope for millions of Christians around the world. When Sathya Sai Baba lived, millions were already following him. He had a well-established organization, and if I may add with all humility, I'm a small part of it only, he has Radio Sai. Call it history, call it destiny, or your unique karma, but you and I are standing at a very critical stage in history, at a juncture where the past and the present meet, and continuity and renewal depend on you and I. The onus is on us to utilize this unique opportunity to act as the true instruments of God with love and humility. How we play out our roles is critical for the fulfillment of our purpose in life. Should we fail the avatar, history's judgment of our performance will indeed be very harsh. Take the example of Arjuna. After Krishna, the great Arjuna, the warrior, the invincible, who could summon a weapon of mass destruction by merely chanting a mantra. When Krishna was to leave his body, he gave him one simple assignment: take the women and children to a safe location. And as he was traveling with this big caravan of women and children from Dwaraka to Mathura for their safety, en route he heard the news of Krishna leaving his physical form. He was so devastated. He was so lost that within seconds he lost all his powers. And he just stood helplessly as the bandits came to loot away everything on the way. He could just watch them without any strength. We cannot be those Arjunas. We have to be the Arjunas who will live for God. We cannot be the Arjuna who failed Krishna in his last mission. To live for God is the only worthwhile activity. To love for God and in His name is the only venture worth considering. All else will be added to us, because Swami has categorically said to us, when you work for me, I will take care of all your work. I am a living example of that. At this point in time, I'd like to invite any questions from the audience. How much time do we have, Sundar? We still have 20 minutes? Okay, I thought I'd spoken so much. I've given you my whole life story. Okay. At this point in time, I'll be very happy to invite questions from the audience, and I'll attempt to answer them to the best of my ability. Do not be shy, please. I'm pretty harmless. Yes, please, go ahead.
Sarup, Karuna. Since no one is asking a question, this is just a comment from my side. Indeed, your speech has made me realize I come to terms to the physical passing away of Swami's form, and made me realize, and I'm sure I'm speaking for many others, that the rebirth of Prema Sai is in our hearts. We are waiting for the day, but it's already should have happened in our hearts. And as you said, the onus is on us now. And also, I think Swami has sent you as a messenger right now. He's seeing that. To catalyze this process, as you rightfully put it, of connecting with the cosmic consciousness. It's difficult, but it's our turn now, and he made us realize that, to pass on the legacy that he is, for us, the responsibility that he has given us. Thank you so much. Truly.
Well, I have a message for Swami from Swami for each one of you, and I really want you to receive it straight in your heart, not in your head. This is a message that Bhagwan gave to Charles Penn many years, the late Charles Penn, an American pilot who was one of the early devotees of Bhagwan Baba, and I will read it to you, and I beg your indulgence to bear with me. I'll read it a bit slow, and please try to take it as a personal note from Bhagwan to you, and I'll just drink some water. The multiplication of my love will be felt throughout the world. I have prepared you for this work over many incarnations. I have drawn you to me. I have made great steps in my mission over these past incarnations. My work is ceaseless, and so your work too is without end. Know that I am within and without you. There is no difference. Rid yourself of the petty matters forevermore. You are now in me, and I am now in thee. There is no difference. My darshan will pour forth from me to and through you. You may be unaware of this constant action. Be ever pure of heart and soul, and mankind in your lifetime will benefit from your unique qualities. Others too will join me in this mission when I draw them to me. The time is approaching when all humanity will live in harmony. That time will be here sooner than one expects. Before it arrives, be prepared for whatever is needed to reveal to every living thing the true purpose of existence. It is not what anyone alive can imagine. It is not something that one can try to aspire to. It is beyond all comprehension. I can say that its beauty is magnificent beyond all dreams. And as each of you perform your silent work, I embrace you to my heart, and henceforth your souls shall be lifted up, and your eyes will reveal my presence within. This I say to all my devotees from the Lord's mountain top, where all things in the universe become one. Be about my work, my beloved bhaktas. Your breath will carry the scent of the blossoms of heaven. Your example will be that of angels. Your joy will be my joy. So is there any other question? Okay, in which case I will just share with you that the last 2 years that I have lived in India, in case some of you have not noticed, I understand you have speakers from all campuses of the Sai University, and in our university we all love our Chancellor equally and tremendously, but he has a special spot for his girls. He loves us very, very much, but he demonstrated the love in a very subtle way, not skewed in the physical attention was skewed in favor of particular gender. I need not mention which one. And I did not belong to that. So now that I had this opportunity to work as staff at Riverside as a volunteer there, I was very blessed to be involved in some projects, and I really didn't have too many major interactions, but few that I had was last summer, around this time, I was very sick. I had a cold, nothing life-threatening, very severe cold, and I was working on a radio program for Mother Ishwaramba, and it was like down to the wire. I was running behind schedule, and I recorded it, and I sound awful because I'm all clogged up, and I had sinuses and high fever, and I'm asthmatic, so I'm like, you can hear me gasping for breath, so you can clean it up in editing. So we did that, and I recorded it. I really worked very hard, and I was very dissatisfied with what I did because I like to do things nicely, but this was very rushed. But I did it with a lot of love. And when I went for darshan, I was like, oh, I should ask Swami. Then I said in my heart, Swami, I have a fairly nice place to sit in the second row where Swami comes. I said, Swami, if I did my job with love and you're happy with the story, please give me a sign. You have to look in my direction. And when Swami came, he was looking in the opposite direction. Just when he came near me, he turned and he looked past everybody in the front row straight into my eyes and gave me the little brown hand of God, which I wish I could just grab it right now. But yeah, it was such a beautiful experience. He just gave me a little assurance and looked deeply and keenly in my eyes. So I knew he was okay with the story. And then last year on August the 24th, it was Rakhi Day, and I come from a family of 4 girls. I have no biological brothers, but I have like way too many brothers around the world, Sai brothers, more than I can handle, like at least several thousand, at least 1,000 brothers, and I'm not kidding you. And because Gmail has stopped me from sending forwards, I have 1,500 Sai family members, so they think I'm spamming. So every 24 hours, my limit, they put a restriction on sending emails. So I have no biological brothers, and my cousins who are very close to me, and I love them dearly. Every Rakhi Day, Rakhi is the Hindu festival where sisters tie a thread and a string around their brother's wrist, and brothers give you money, and it's supposed to be symbolizing protection for all times. You can always count on a brother. But I was a stubborn little girl, and I told my mom, I don't want any of these brothers, because if I'm in trouble, I'm somewhere, they're somewhere, how are they going to rescue me? So from my childhood, I used to tie Rakhi only to the shivling in my house. And I always offered it to God. And then by the time I was like 5 years old or something, 6 years old, Swami was part of her family, so I always offered it to Swami. As a student, I always gave him a Rakhi or Rakhi Day. So when Swami took my Rakhi, all the girls queued in and everybody started putting a letter with the Rakhi and giving. And I know one Rakhi, Swami said, brother ko bando, bhai ko bando, and he threw back all the letters that had Rakhi, but he took mine because I had no brother to go and tie it for. And over the years, my daughter, all of us have always, every Rakhi Day, we perform puja for Swami and offer it to him. So last year I thought, I'm in person, why don't I try to give it to Swami? I was so rushed. And I came home and I didn't have a Rakhi, but my friend had left 2 Rakhis from her daughter for my son. So I just took my friend's Rakhi for my son. I took a little note and I didn't know what to write to Swami. So one of my favorite poems, I've worked in an elementary school, is Robert Munshi's poem, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I live, my baby you shall be. And in the end it says, my mama you shall be. So I just used some lines from there and I wrote a 4-line note to Swami, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I live, your daughter I hope to be. And I drew a lot of hearts and exos and everything. And at the back I drew a big Omkar because I wrote on a small sheet and here I drew a big Omkar in case he reads, I will know it's my letter. I always mark. And I put my Rakhi there and I just sat and then I said, will he take it? Because the Canadians were over and they were performing and Swami came and then I said, you know what? I have to have faith in my love for him because for last 3 years I have sent a Rakhi. So today I'm here in person after so long. Will he come? Swami came into the gate and from a distance he looked straight at me to such an extent that the guy had to bring the throne straight to me, and he held his hand out and he took my Rakhi and I said, Swami, may I take Padma Namaskar? He just pointed to his feet and he let me take Padma Namaskar. And when he went up to the stage, the Canadians were sitting right in front, the Canada group, and Swami opened the letters and he pulls my letter out, he pulls out the red Rakhi, he tears it into 2 pieces and he gives 1 piece to the boy sitting to his right, 1 to his left. I have brothers all over the world, so those 2 add to the list. And then Swami opens my letter to read because I asked, did he have that Om letter? They said, yeah. The girls, the Canadian kids who were sitting in the front. So because I draw it with a big marker so I can easily identify. So Swami was reading my letter on Rakhi Day and that was it was a very small thing for many, but for me it was so special. It was a lifetime it was an affirmation of my lifetime of looking up to him as my brother, because this is the only brother who can transcend time and space and rescue me. My other brothers are very sweet, I love them to bits, but when I need, I can't say Bhaiya and somebody will come, because Spider-Man or Superman is not amongst them, so they're not going to be able to come instantly. And subsequently, because last year was the year of the 85th birthday, I was very, very fortunate. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. I was part of a small team that the Sri Sathya Sai Organization of India had constituted to prepare 2 Times of India special supplements to mark Bhagwan's birthday. So there was a supplement that was delivered across India to all Times of India subscribers, a 4-page color supplement in spring called The Beacon of Love. And it covered the Sai movement in India, and it was later translated into every vernacular language and sent out as an insert with the major dailies in every state of India. The Beacon of Love covered the Sai movement in India, and at his birthday on the 18th they released another supplement called the Universal Sai, and this supplement, this Times of India presentation, covered the Sai movement across the globe, and I was part of the small team that had an opportunity to work on it. It was the most mesmerizing experience of my life, because every second I felt I was on such a spiritual high, and I think it gave me such an opportunity to align my professional skills with my inner calling, because I was able to gush and pour my love out for Swami, but do it in a way that would be palatable to the mainstream readership. And if you would like to see these 2 supplements, I understand they're available on the international website of the Sai organization, which is satyasai.org, The Beacon of Love and the Universal Sai. And the first one, when it was presented to Swami, we were not anywhere in the picture, but when it was given to him in his residence, we were told that Swami came and he found it on his table and he read it so avidly and he went through all the pages and he was very pleased, and then he folded and he put it under his arm, and when he went up the elevator to his room, he took it there and he was reading it again. And then later, the second one, after Swami liked it, he was very pleased. And on 23rd was Bhagwan's birthday, but on 25th November was his birthday according to the lunar calendar. And on that day we had an opportunity. We were about 5 or 6 of us in the team, but 3 of us were in Puttaparthi. We had an opportunity to present it to Swami formally. So when Swami came, we got up and we had rehearsed our lines, and one of us sat right in front of Swami, one to his left, one to his right, so that he couldn't move fast. We just wanted to block him. And so we said, Swami, this is for you, and we gave him the CDs of the 2 supplements, and I asked him, Swami, aapko pasand aaya? Which means, did you like it? And he went with his big eyes and eyebrows, he really liked it. And then my friend to my right, he said, Swami, are you happy with us? He was still, that is a look I will have to treasure and freeze in my heart for the rest of my life. And he was so pleased. And then the girl to my left, she said, we had decided that the 3 members of our team who were not with us, they would feel so bad they lost the opportunity. We will tell Swami, they also participated in the project. So this girl was so sweet. She said, Swami, Hina and Preeta and Vasuki also, even before she could rattle the name, Swami's like, yeah, I know. You know that look? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, don't give me the, if my son starts a long winding story and I'm like, yeah, I know, move on. So I'm like, yeah, I know. He knew the names of those people. And then he gave us all an opportunity to take Namaskar, and those velvet lotus feet, kissed his right foot, and then I kissed his left foot, and then I placed my head on his feet. I said, I'm not going to let go of this opportunity. On 25th of November, it was so beautiful. So when we finished, he was so happy, like, are you satisfied? Then I just said, Swami, we are so grateful for the opportunity. Please give us many more opportunities. And he's like this, because I have a video of it, because I told the boys, but by the time I told them, half of that 30-second conversation was over, but they've recorded the last 47 seconds with the Zoom, and Swami's like, yes. When I said, Swami, we would like more opportunities to serve you, and he said yes, and he's kept his word in every way. And then on this, just 2 weeks prior to Swami, exactly 2 weeks prior to Swami going to the hospital, March 14th was my birthday, and my husband gave me a nice sari as a gift, so I wore my sari. I told Shauri Auntie, I sat in the front row and I meditated with all my heart and soul, and I said, Swami, you've got to come and bless me. And as I was meditating so hard, somebody tapped me. I don't know, Swami, you know how in these Western people's books, Swami's right in front of them and they open their eyes. I opened my eyes and there was nobody. Everybody was looking at the mandir. I said, what happened? The white chair had come out and Swami didn't even come. So they were doing aarti to the chair, and somebody was telling me, like, stop praying so hard. He ain't coming. So I was so heartbroken. So I tried not to cry, but I said, oh, okay, whatever Swami wills. I was just trying to be brave. Gotten used to Swami skipping a lot of darshans. So I went home and I said, yeah, this was very blind, nothing happened, that's okay also. And but next day I went about my work like I never had a birthday, but by afternoon, that bangs, or maybe I should try today. So I went home very quickly. Luckily for me, my husband got me 2 saris, because otherwise he'd be in so much trouble. So I had 1 more new sari to wear. I went all dressed and marching, and I said, Auntie, okay, I'm going to sit in this little passage here. And I sat with my ledger. And I kept praying, and then Swami came in the car, but I was sitting on the side of the driver, and Swami was looking not across the driver at me or anything. He was looking in the opposite direction. So I went for darshan, and I kept praying when he was on the veranda. I said, Swami, if my love for you is true, if my surrender is genuine, and if I serve you the way I think, with so much of passion, because I don't believe in proceed with caution, I say proceed with passion when it comes to being nice to the love of your life. So I said, if all that is real, or am I imagining it? If it is real, here's the deal. You have to come, you have to stop your car, roll down that window, look me in the eyes, and take my letter with your own hand. Because sometimes Swami will indicate, and the uncles or the people who walk with Swami, the chosen ones, they might just take it and give. I said, I'm not giving it to anybody, it's you or nobody. And it has to be like step by step. Stop, window down, look at me, take the letter. And I kept repeating the steps. And guess what? That's exactly what he did on his way back. He was even when I was waiting, he saw me from a distance and he looked at me. And then just as I was going to get up, an auntie came from behind. get up Amma, she had something to say to Swami. And I'm so in awe of him that I can't just rush and all. I said, Auntie, you go first. So she went, and of course she had to tell her entire life story to Swami in the window. And she was, I think, planning a trip. So she told him her entire itinerary, all the layovers and all included, check-in time. So as she was doing, I stood at a distance with my letter, and Swami, so she was speaking in Swami's ear, and Swami leaned forward and he looked at me and he extended in my eyes. And then he raised his little hand and he extended it to me, and I gave him that letter. And that look was so another Polaroid moment which I'll have to keep in my heart alive at all times, because we'll all have to go back and revisit those memories, because Swami said he gave us all those good memories, so that's the fountain of bliss we have to go back and dive into and draw our strength and courage. But we can't just stop being all sobby as I get about these things. We have to be courageous and bold, and we have to be fearless, and we have to move on, because we are here for a reason. We can't just go through life, just morning to evening, complaining, working, coming home. There has to be, and I find when you're caught up in a situation where you find you're so entangled, if you pray to Swami, he will show the way. Because in the end, you and I and everybody is a nobody and nothing. And the moment we realize that truth, the antenna connects with the cosmic consciousness, and God flows through us. And after that, life is just pure bliss. There is no duality. With the thought of oneness, I leave you, and I thank you for this invitation.
Before I invite Sister Anuradha Murari, another alumnus of the Anantapur Institute, to express our collective gratitude for Sister Karuna, I just wanted to acknowledge Sister Karuna's contribution in helping broadcast many of the Radio Sai talks that we have had at the Flushing Sai Center on Radio Sai. So because of her, these talks are available for the benefit of listeners around the world. And I also wish to remind you that today we have a breakout session for the SSC children, teachers, parents, and the young adults with Sister Karuna. This will be at Asamai Temple after the Mangala Aarti. Now invite Sister Anuradha. Saira.
So full of gratitude, and at this point, I just want to recollect a little bit of what Swami had shared with us when we were in Anantapur. During one of our summer course discourses, Swami said, we were all sitting in the Vrindavan auditorium, and Swami was there talking to us, and he said, do you think that you are here in this institution because you wrote the exam and you passed and you got an admission here? No. You are here because, just like see the millions of grains of sand that you see, how difficult it is to separate one grain of sand from the other grain of sand. Like that, I have picked each one of you to be here. And at that time, I did not understand the enormity of it or the significance of it, because I just thought that we are all the same. But now, looking at Karuna, I just feel that Swami was so right. That looking at Karuna, all her work, all that she has experienced and the way she shared it, today makes me feel that definitely a chosen one. Absolutely a chosen one. And if anybody has received an email from her, it says, it catches your attention right underneath, it says, don't work for applause, work for cause. But Karuna, you have worked so much for cause that we cannot do anything but give an applause. On behalf of all of you here, and on behalf of all of us alumni, a very, very heartfelt gratitude, and may Swami be with you at all times, with your family, and with each and every second of your life. And I pray that Swami is with all of us also. How can we Anantapur alumni forget to show gratitude to Brother Sundar? Because of Brother Sundar and and his team and all the Flushing Center members, it was possible for us to come together and remember Swami fondly and relive all those experiences and go back with our hearts full of gratitude and love. Thank you so much.